Hello, my name is Keith Haswell and I'm a professional astrologer. I always go into a little bit of detail about myself first, because just in case this is your first video that you've seen of mine, it's important for you to know where I'm coming from and what my credentials are. And so I ask for the understanding of those who are long-term students of mine. Yeah, professional astrologer with 40 years experience in the business and over 30,000 clients worldwide. And I've now done 150 YouTube videos, and I've got 36 CDs out of 2 of my books. What Really Matters is a book on astrology, meditation and reincarnation, the basics. And the other one, Coming Home, An Eternal Journey, goes into things a lot more deeply. So welcome to this particular video called Wake Up and Come Alive. You know, I get so much joy out of the feedback that I get from my students who are watching my videos as they come out, and to get the feedback from those who are doing my intensives and listening to my CDs and so forth is just such a joy. And also to get the feedback from people who've had their horoscope done by me about the validity and the accuracy of it. So I thank you all for that. And it's nice to be able to have this opportunity to be able to talk with you about a topic that's so important. All of us have a whole bundle of anesthetics. None of us are perfect, otherwise we wouldn't be here. So all of us have got our own particular faults and weaknesses and limitations and anesthetics that we use to put ourselves to sleep. And these anesthetics I'm going to talk with you about here today to help you to be able to understand what these anesthetics are and how they function, and also then to be able to give up these anesthetics to wake up and come alive. So just sit back and relax now and enjoy the journey here with me, eh? I've got close to 5,000 subscribers now to my YouTube videos. Now the first of these anesthetics is a natural one that all of us fall prey to, and that's self-pity, feeling sorry for ourselves. And the whine of self-pity is something that is a way whereby we control other people who are in our lives and dominate them and control them in certain ways by our self-pity, manipulation, domination and control. That's what a lot of these anesthetics are all about. Guilt is another anesthetic. Guilt is not a real emotion. Guilt is simply anger that you either feel that you don't have a right to express or that you're going to get into trouble for expressing. And so you stuff it inside of yourself and it becomes guilt. And guilt putrefies. And guilt, suppressed anger, which is what guilt is, can cause cancer and all sorts of maladies in our health. Martyrhood is another anesthetic that we use. And martyrhood is, oh, I've sacrificed my whole life for you, and what sort of things do I get back from you? Nothing. Feeling sorry for yourself all the time. It's an anesthetic and it puts you to sleep. Shame is another anesthetic that we tend to pop under our tongue. There's the shame of childhood. There's the shame of adolescence, when we come into our understanding about our sexuality. And there's the shame of young adulthood. There's the shame of adulthood. Look, these are things that we tend to use as an anesthetic to put ourselves to sleep. It makes you feel as if you don't deserve to wake up and come alive. Now, many times the shame comes from being abused, physically abused or sexually abused as a child. And that sort of shame is not even yours. It's shame that was dumped onto you by the offender. So you're hanging on to something there as an anesthetic that keeps you asleep that's not even yours. Another anesthetic is dwelling in the past, living in the past and regurgitating the past over and over and over again, trying to make it right, trying to heal the past, trying to reflect upon where you could have made differences and changes and so forth. Instead of focusing upon where you are going, you are clinging to what you have done or where you have been. The right thing to do by yourself as a spiritual being is to let go of the past and to realise that you don't change that past and you don't wallow around in that past because it's an anesthetic that puts you to sleep. To think about who you are becoming and the magnificence and the wonder of who you are becoming and where you are heading. That's where you are going, is into the future. Another anesthetic that is one of the favourites of all of us is the nobility of struggle. Oh, I've struggled harder than anybody else, and therefore I deserve to have success because of my struggle and my hardship and my limitations that I've risen above. Nobility is an anesthetic and it puts you to sleep. Another anesthetic is stagnation. Stagnation means that you get into metaphysics and you start finding out about the fact that you can create your own reality, and you then turn around and create a certain reality for yourself using the principles of metaphysics, and then you become stagnant, and then you say, well, I came into metaphysics because I wanted to achieve this particular goal or that particular direction in my life, and I've now got that, so that's enough for me. Instead of thinking about where you are heading and who you are becoming and continuing to grow and reach and stretch and always becoming more of who you really are, you allow yourself to slip into stagnation, which is an anesthetic and puts you to sleep. Another favourite anesthetic that puts you to sleep is righteousness and blame. Blame has never ever achieved anything. And for example, righteousness and blame about homelessness. You see these homeless people there in the street. Some of these people have got college degrees and they're very intelligent, but they just came upon hard times, lost their job or had some crisis with their health or something like that, and they lost their home and now they're out on the street, lost their job. But instead of doing something about that and helping that person, you go into righteousness and blame about, oh, it's the government's fault, or oh, it's this fault, or it's that fault. That's the reason why, is those wealthy people who are using all of those who are not wealthy. It's the same thing with AIDS. Going into righteousness and blame about AIDS is the wrath of God and something that's put upon the homosexuals of the world, when in fact 70% of those who have contracted AIDS are heterosexuals. So righteousness and blame never achieves anything, and it's an anesthetic that puts you to sleep. Expressing your outrage about something is just too painful. You don't want to dig that deep. So you slip into righteousness and blame. Another anesthetic that puts us to sleep is repressed emotions. When you repress emotions, they become negative. Even positive emotions of joy and wonder and happiness and love, when it is suppressed inside of yourself and not expressed, it turns negative. And it's an anesthetic that puts you to sleep. Another anesthetic that puts you to sleep is compensation for failure. For example, you had a relationship and a marriage and it failed, it broke up, it ran its course, it finished, it ended. But what you say now is that I am going to now form a new relationship to compensate for that failure. Instead of going into that new relationship for the joy and the wonder and the excitement and the adventure that that new relationship holds, you're going into that new relationship to compensate for failure. Now, the outward circumstances may seem to be the same if you're having success in that new relationship, but still, because the inner cause is an anesthetic that puts you to sleep. Compensation for failure. When you live your life fending off failure, instead of living the wonder of success in your life, you stay asleep. The task at hand here in this situation with this particular anesthetic is to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for that particular failure and to then go on living for the future, not dwelling in the past. Another anesthetic is fear of the real self. Fear of your real self. If I dig too deep, it starts to scare me. It's more than I can conceive. And I refuse to give up the not self. The negative, the worrying, the fearful, the angry, the guilty, the shameful. I refuse to give that part of me up. And so therefore I've popped the pill and the anesthetic and I put myself to sleep. It's time now for all of us to wake up and to stay awake. It's time for every one of us to realise that we are a beautiful eternal being, that we are given the gift of eternal life by God and Goddess, all that is, who loves us and knows our name. You know what? God and Goddess have set it up in such a way that they can be 100% conscious in their dialogue with you, even though they've got dialogue with everybody else in the universe of universes. They can be 100% conscious in your world, in your communication, and expressing themselves in love and wonder at the magnificence of you. You have a piece of God and Goddess inside of yourself that has all of the properties, all of the qualities, and all of the powers of God and Goddess inside of yourself now. Your task is to recognize that fact and unfold those powers. That piece of God and Goddess is your spirit, your higher self. And you know what? You've also got a soul, because spirit coming down into matter in order to express itself in this space-time rule set and to be able to realise its own potential in the physical and conscious mind, creates the consciousness factor. And that consciousness factor is a gift from your soul. It is the creation of your soul. So consciousness and soul are identical terms. And you have so much power inside of yourself to create all of the events and conditions of your life through the power of conscious choice instead of subconscious choice as you're doing now. All of us have the same raw materials. All of us have attitudes and beliefs, thoughts and feelings, and the decisions and choices that spring from those attitudes and beliefs and thoughts and feelings. They're our raw materials. Nobody has any different raw materials. And we all have three tools. We have our desire, our imagination, and our expectancy. What do we desire is going to happen? If we're popping the pills and popping the anesthetics, then our desire subconsciously is to fail. Our desire subconsciously is to put ourselves asleep. Our desire subconsciously is not to become more of who we really are. What do we imagine is going to happen? The power of the imagination is incredible. Imagination is a language. Imagination is the language of the soul. Imagination is the language that God and Goddess can communicate to you with. What do you imagine that they're going to say to you? What do you imagine that they're going to communicate to you? When you go along that line of imagination, even if you are wrong in what you imagine that they're saying, practice in meditation and using the science of meditation on a regular basis every day for at least 15 minutes to start off with, and then building up to half an hour every day, busy there in your imagination, there in your safe place, utilizing the science of meditation, you can create a reality there of communication that opens up through the power of the language of imagination. And what do we expect is going to happen? Our expectation is something that creates the reality. We must all understand that all of the events and conditions of our life are not by random chance and by good luck or bad luck. They are all the results of our raw materials, our attitudes and beliefs, our thoughts and our feelings, and our decisions and our choices. And the tools that we use, our desire, our imagination, and our expectation. You have so much power inside of yourself. It's all a matter of waking up from the deep sleep that we allow ourselves to slip into. The anesthetics, the pills that we pop there to keep ourselves asleep, to save ourselves from waking up to the wonder and the beauty and the magnificence of what life is all about. You've lived dozens and dozens of lifetimes to get where you are today. Your higher self has brought you through each of those lifetimes and brought you back into incarnation each time. It's time to now open up dialogue there with your higher self. Your future self contains all of your potential futures for this particular lifetime. There's some wonderful futures there that are ready to open up for you. Toward that end, I'm prepared to do your horoscope chart for you free of charge, and to do an individual thing called progressions, which is based on your individual horoscope, the progressions of your planets, and they determine the major events and conditions that you've set up for yourself prior to coming in to this incarnation. I do those progressions for you free of charge by visiting my website. The website address has popped up by now, or it will pop up shortly, so you can write that down and come to my website and submit your birth details through the Your Horoscope page, and I do a free horoscope number 1 for you, which is your progressions over the next 30 months. So I thank you for your attentiveness here. It's nice to have this opportunity. Subscribe to my website. Subscribe to my videos, because I'm putting out new videos all the time. Over 150 now, and the feedback that I get about them is just absolutely beautiful. Tick the like box if you like this particular video, because it inspires others also to want to look at this particular video and to help them to let go of their anesthetics, to stop popping those pills of the anesthetics that puts them to sleep, and help them to wake up and come alive. So I thank you for your attentiveness here and look forward to working further with you should you decide to submit your birth details and have some fun with me and become more of who you really are. Thank you.